My name is Claire, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a perfect life. I had a husband who loved me, or so I believed, a beautiful baby boy named Noah, and a quiet, peaceful home in the suburbs. I spent my days humming lullabies while folding tiny clothes, baking banana bread, and imagining our son growing up strong and happy in a world where he was deeply loved by both his parents. I never thought my life would collapse in the blink of an eye. I never thought someone who claimed to love us could become the very person who shattered everything. It all began the day my mother-in-law, Irene, came to visit. I had never had a great relationship with her, but I tolerated her because of Ethan, my husband. Irene was cold, traditional, and always had something to say about how I wasn't doing things right, from the way I cooked to how I dressed Noah. But what truly made her difficult was the fact that she never really accepted me. She made it very clear that I wasn't the woman she dreamed of for her only son. Still, I played the role of the polite daughter-in-law, hoping that with time she might warm up. But she never did. If anything, after Noah was born, things only got worse. "He doesn't look like an Anderson," she would say, eyeing my child like he was some kind of science experiment. "Anderson babies are always born with dark eyes and thick hair." Noah had my hazel eyes and fine golden hair, traits that ran in my side of the family. Ethan always brushed off her comments, chuckling and saying, "Babies change, Mom. He'll look more like me when he gets older." But Irene's eyes would linger. One rainy afternoon while Ethan was out grocery shopping, Irene showed up unannounced. She walked in with a neutral expression, clutching her oversized purse like it contained something precious. "Claire," she said sharply, "we need to talk." I was bouncing Noah on my hip, rocking him gently to sleep. "Can it wait? He's finally napping." "No," she said, and her tone sent a chill down my spine. I put Noah down in his crib and followed her into the kitchen. She sat at the table, took a manila envelope from her purse and slid it toward me. "What's this?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "A DNA test," she said, folding her hands. "I had a friend from the clinic collect a sample from Noah's pacifier the last time I visited." My heart stopped. "You what?" I needed to know the truth. For Ethan, for our family. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a sheet of paper stamped and signed, 99.9% probability of non-paternity. I felt the blood drain from my face. My head spun. The kitchen seemed to tilt. "This is a lie," I whispered. "This can't be right." "It's science, Claire. You can't fake DNA. You can't." My voice cracked. "You can't do this. I already did." And with that, she stood and walked out. No emotion, no mercy, just certainty in her cruel little mission. When Ethan came home, I didn't know how to tell him. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, but I didn't need to. He already knew. He walked in holding 2 grocery bags, placed them on the counter, and looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "Is it true?" he asked. I shook my head, tears already blurring my vision. "Of course not. Ethan, I would never." "Then how do you explain the test, Claire?" My mom showed me the results. "She's lying, or the test was tampered with. We can do another one. At a proper laboratory, please." He hesitated. For a long moment, he just stood there. Then he picked up his keys. "I'm going to stay at a hotel," he said quietly, "until I figure this out." He didn't even say goodbye to Noah. The days after Ethan left were a blur. I barely ate, I barely slept. I'd hold Noah in my arms and just rock back and forth, trying to understand how everything fell apart so fast. Friends started to notice. Melissa, my best friend since college, came by one afternoon with groceries and homemade soup. "Claire," she said gently, taking in my sunken eyes and messy hair, "you can't go on like this." "I didn't do anything wrong," I whispered. "I swear, Mel." "I know," she said, placing her hand on mine. "Which is why you need to prove it. Get your own test done, at your own lab." She was right. That evening, I took Noah to a trusted pediatric clinic. I explained everything and requested a full paternity test using a sample I provided from Ethan's old toothbrush. The wait felt like forever. A week of silence, of crying behind closed doors, of unanswered texts from Ethan who had gone completely cold. When the results finally came, I opened them with trembling fingers. "Probability of paternity 99.99%. I gasped. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I wasn't wrong, I wasn't a liar, I wasn't unfaithful. I texted Ethan immediately. "The test proves it. You're Noah's father. I can show you the results." Hours passed, then a reply. "We'll see. I'll get my lawyer to contact you." Lawyer? My heart stopped. Ethan had never mentioned lawyers before. Days later, a letter arrived. A formal notice that Ethan was seeking temporary separation and joint custody of a child he'd accused me of lying about. It didn't make sense. If the test proved the truth, why was he still treating me like a stranger? Then I saw it. Hidden deep in the paperwork was a paragraph. Due to concerns raised by the initial paternity report submitted by Mrs. Irene Anderson, the court recommends further investigation to ensure the authenticity of any subsequent test results. My blood boiled. Irene. Again. This wasn't just about her hatred for me anymore. She was trying to erase me, destroy me. And Ethan, blind in his loyalty to her, was letting it happen. I knew what I had to do. I needed proof, real, undeniable proof that Irene had interfered, and I knew exactly where to start, the clinic she claimed her friend worked at. I took Noah to my mother's house and drove straight to the clinic Irene had mentioned all those weeks ago. It was a modest, privately owned practice on the edge of town, quiet with faded paint and peeling signage. The kind of place that didn't ask too many questions. I walked in, trying to steady my voice. The receptionist barely looked up as I approached the counter. "Hi," I said. "I'm looking for a friend of Irene Anderson's. She works here, or used to. They did a DNA test here a few weeks ago. She might go by Dr. Eliza or Ellie." The woman blinked, clearly startled. I'm not sure we're allowed to give out staff names or client details." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "It's very important. That test tore my family apart. I just want to know who ran it." The receptionist hesitated. "Dr. Eliza Weller hasn't worked here for almost 2 months. She left suddenly. We've had complaints about her mishandling samples. You can file a formal report if you believe something unlawful happened." My heart thundered in my chest. That was it. That was the crack in the armor. I filed the complaint, then left, clutching the paperwork like it was my last hope. Back home, I tried calling Ethan again. No answer. I sent him the new test, the updated clinic records, and the complaint I'd filed. I poured out everything in one long, desperate message. Days passed. Silence. Then one night, long after Noah had fallen asleep, I heard a knock at the door. It was Ethan. He looked wrecked, eyes hollow, clothes wrinkled, guilt hanging off him like a heavy coat. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside without a word. We sat across from each other in the living room, the silence louder than the ticking of the wall clock. "I read everything," he finally said, voice rough. "The new test, the complaint, the clinic's admission. I didn't want to believe my mother would go that far." "But she did," I whispered, tears already forming. "She hated me so much. She tried to take everything from me, from us." He nodded slowly. "I thought I was protecting Noah and myself. I didn't realize I was doing exactly what she wanted." I looked at him then, really looked. This was the man I'd married. The man who used to rub my back during contractions and sing lullabies off-key in the middle of the night. And yet, this was also the man who didn't believe me when it mattered most. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. I stood. "I don't either. But I do know that trust doesn't come back just because you knock on the door." Ethan lowered his head. "I understand." He left without another word. I closed the door behind him, my hands shaking, heart torn in 1,000 directions. I wanted to scream, cry, collapse. But instead, I walked down the hall to check on Noah, my sweet, innocent boy who had no idea how close he came to losing everything. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "I'll protect you no matter what." A week passed. I didn't hear from Ethan, not a word, not a text. But I heard from his lawyer. He was still pursuing joint custody, even after everything, even after the truth. I sat on the floor of my bedroom, surrounded by copies of test results, legal papers, and Noah's baby photos. The betrayal came in waves, first from Irene, then Ethan, and now it felt like he was trying to punish me for his own guilt. My mother sat beside me, silent, strong. "You don't have to take this lying down," she finally said. "You've done nothing wrong, and you're his mother. You've been the only parent truly present." I nodded, wiping my face. "It's not just about custody, it's the principle. I have to prove I'm not going to be erased." So I hired a lawyer, a good one, and I prepared myself for battle. The first court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Until then, I gathered everything: emails, texts, reports, and even an affidavit from the clinic admitting their former employee may have falsified results under pressure. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. One morning, just as I was feeding Noah his applesauce, there was another knock at the door. I expected the postman. It was Irene, dressed in pearls and perfume, standing like she still owned the world. I froze. "I came to talk," she said, voice clipped but strangely calm. I wanted to slam the door in her face, but something inside me, maybe curiosity, maybe the need for closure, let her in. She sat at the kitchen table, glanced briefly at Noah, then met my eyes. "I never meant for things to go this far," she said. I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You tampered with a DNA test." "I was protecting my son," she replied coldly, "from what I thought was a betrayal." "From a lie you created," I snapped. "You broke us and you tried to take my child away from me." She looked down, hands folded tightly. "I thought you were beneath him. I thought he could do better. I was wrong." That stunned me. It was the first time, ever, I heard Irene admit fault. "I can't undo what I did," she continued, "but I can tell the court the truth." I narrowed my eyes. "Why would you do that now?" "Because Ethan loves you," she said simply. "And I see that now. I've already caused enough damage." Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to scream. "I'll let my lawyer know," I said. She nodded and stood. "You're a good mother. Noah's lucky." And then she left, just like that. But I knew better than to let my guard down. The courtroom felt cold and impersonal. Sterile walls, hard benches, the scent of tension in the air. Ethan sat on one side, eyes locked on the floor. I sat on the other, clutching a folder filled with truth. The judge called us forward. Our lawyers presented their arguments, facts, timelines, medical records. When the DNA tampering came up, the courtroom stiffened. Then it was Irene's turn. She took the stand in a cream suit, her signature pearls glinting under the fluorescent lights. "I admit I tampered with the original test," she said plainly. "I convinced the technician to alter the result. I thought Claire wasn't good enough for my son. I thought Noah wasn't his. I was wrong, and I take full responsibility." Gasps echoed in the room. Ethan's jaw tightened. My lawyer squeezed my arm. "Do you understand the impact of your actions?" the judge asked. "Yes," Irene said, for once not hiding behind vanity. "I may have ruined a family." The judge called a recess. Outside the courtroom, Ethan approached me. He looked shaken. "I didn't know she was going to say that," he muttered. "She didn't tell me?" I nodded slowly. "But now you know what I've lived through." He looked at me then, not like I was the woman who betrayed him, but the woman he had betrayed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know," I replied, "but sorry doesn't fix everything." He looked down. "I want to make things right. For you. For Noah." It was the first time I believed him. A week later, the judge granted me full custody, citing the trauma, deception, and Noah's best interest. Ethan was given visitation with a supervised start. I cried when the ruling came down, not because I had won, but because I had fought for my child and didn't break. Ethan asked to come over the next week. He wanted to see Noah. I agreed. He arrived with a small gift, a wooden puzzle Noah loved, and sat on the floor helping him fit the pieces together. They laughed together. It was genuine. Afterward, as we packed up the toys, Ethan turned to me. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, "but I want to be present, a better man, a better father." I looked at him. I believed him. Maybe not for us, but for Noah. "I'll hold you to that," I said. He nodded, and then he left, quietly, respectfully. I stood at the window as he walked down the driveway, Noah's giggle still echoing in the hallway. Time moved on. The house no longer echoed with the silence of heartbreak. Laughter returned, Noah's sweet voice humming songs, the sounds of bedtime stories and morning cartoons. Ethan kept his word. He showed up for Noah every time. He brought picture books, taught him to ride a bike, even sat in the waiting room during Noah's flu shot just to hold his hand afterward. And me? I found pieces of myself again. I started teaching part-time, baking again on weekends, and reconnecting with friends I had pushed away during the chaos. It wasn't perfect. Some nights still stung. But the sting didn't stay. It faded, replaced with something gentler, like acceptance. Irene never came around again. She sent one letter, apologizing, asking to one day meet Noah if I saw fit. I never responded. Some lines once crossed can't be uncrossed. One evening, Ethan stayed longer after his visit with Noah. We sat on the back porch while our son chased fireflies in the grass. "I still love you," he said quietly. I didn't answer, because love isn't just a word, it's trust. It's truth, and that had been shattered. But I looked at him, not with hate, not even with hurt, just clarity. I know, I said, but we're different people now. He nodded, accepting it. We watched Noah twirl barefoot in the grass, his laughter echoing into the dusk. That's what mattered. Not revenge, not repair, but resilience. I had survived betrayal, humiliation, the near loss of my child. And I was still standing, not broken, not bitter, just free. Sometimes the deepest betrayals come from those closest to us, but truth, once unearthed, doesn't just expose, it liberates. Claire didn't just fight for custody, she fought for clarity, for healing, for herself. And in doing so, she didn't just reclaim her child. She reclaimed her life.